The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Puff in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh. Got my hustle on, no imitation of that. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off season, homie, check the numbers. Heart throb in my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too evil and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty. Shake!
Earnestly Podcast coming to you Tuesday morning about 11:30 in the morning. Well, actually, no, noon. Just about noon on November 18th, 2025. How you guys doing? It's once again the Tuesday episode of the podcast. Lots to get to today on the show. Of course, you're going to get my week 11 takeaways on the NFL. Things are heating up in the NFL, of course. And some thoughts about the college football season, a season that I've not felt engaged in right now. Also, last night, if you're a wrestling fan, last night was John Cena's final appearance on Monday Night Raw, which I didn't watch, but I did see some of the highlights after the fact. And then Michelle Obama made some very, very, what some may say controversial comments, but I don't find it controversial at all. We'll get to that in just a second. Before we do get to all these topics, this weekend was kind of interesting one for me because, very, very rare to my wife go, do me and my wife spend time away from each other for an extended period of time. They're like days, like maybe a day or two, maybe one day where like she's goes to Disney overnight, whatever. But most of the time we're always together. In the 9 years we've been together, we're almost always together. But this weekend though, she went away for about 3 days. She went to the original plan was for her to go to Warped Tour. The very popular, one used to be very popular and it is now returned, alternative music festival that was coming to Orlando. And she actually ended up getting tickets for that way back, like when tickets went on sale, if I'm not mistaken, last year around this time, November. And she got on pre-sales at the time. Thinking that it was her and her girlfriends, and they had initially had a group going, and that ended up disbanding at the end. They're going to go to Warped Tour. Now this is before the bands were announced, and I told her I'm not a fan of that. I hate having to commit to a festival, not knowing if the bands are on the bill are going to be good enough or bands worth seeing, which of course ended up being the case. And through the year, as they were adding bands, most of the bands that was on the bill, she didn't really care to see. She really didn't care to see them, and her and her friend ended up selling a ticket the day of the show they got some money back, not all of it back. Obviously, he had to cut prices to make it worth the while, but they kept the plans in place and end up going to Disney. Both of them are a big Disney people, so that's not a big deal. So it was just her and her girlfriend, and then so me and the two boys stayed home all weekend long. Even while I worked at the weekend, we had help. Shout out to my friends Donnie and my sister-in-law Terica for taking care of my kids when I had to go to work. So she's away, and I just hate when she's away. Like, no matter how much, your spouse might annoy you and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, if you love your spouse and you love the marriage you're in, which I do, of course, you're going to feel some kind of way when they're away. Sometimes you appreciate people more when they're not in your face all the time, and I think that for me, that was definitely the case again for me. It hit me, not just the fact that she's away and I missed her, but also the fact that I'm grateful that I am, raising two boys with someone instead of doing it alone. It's not to say I couldn't do it alone. I could be a single father with my sons and still figure out a way to do it. It doesn't mean I wanted to do that. That's number one. Number two, it would be very hard, especially at the stages they're at now in their lives. Now, I'm about to have a teenager next year, and come to things I'm dealing with there. But it's much easier to do this when you are with someone sharing kids. We're not in co-parenting. We're actually a married couple and we live together and whatnot. I don't know how people who are co-parents do it. I don't know how single parents do it, honestly. It's tough. And it reminded me how grateful I am to be involved in a 2-parent household with an amazing teammate. My wife is a great teammate. I love her very much. And, I'll admit I was a little bit vulnerable with her this weekend. Talking to her on the phone a little bit. And I don't have to get into all those mushy details, of course. But yeah, that was my weekend in a nutshell. Being a single dad, which this is kind of extreme because I wasn't being a single dad. I'm still married. It's just that my wife happened to not be home, so I was basically the 1-parent household. So, but it wasn't a fun weekend. Of course, we the kids and I we watched some, not movies but some TV shows, and I think we watched Fuller House on Saturday night. Had ordered pizza. I watched football on Sunday. That was fine, and everything went smooth pretty much. And the weekend honestly went quicker than I realized too. So. But I'm glad I got her back now. So that's just that. All right, let's get to some of the week 11 takeaways. My top 5 takeaways from the weekend as things are starting to heat up, man. My first takeaway, of course, for the weekend, number 1. It is about forget what it's be about. It is becoming hella annoying with the New England Patriots being good again. Some of my Patriots friends now talking shit. Drake Mays and the MVP conversation. The Pats are 9-2 and starting to kind of run away the division right now with 7 weeks to go. And look, they look really good. I'm not gonna lie to you, look really good. I'm apprehensive as to whether or not they're actually a Super Bowl contender. I'm not there yet. I know they have 2 quality wins. One's against Buffalo, one's against Tampa. Obviously, but we'll see. I mean, I still believe that there's a lot more work to be done there. For me to be proven to prove, like, the Colts took all the oxygen out of the room the entire year, and all of a sudden now the Pats now it's becoming the big favorite of the month now in the NFL. But we'll see. We got a long way to go, man. It's a long way to go. There's still time for teams to screw it up. Time for the Pats to screw it up. And I think I think it's a good story. I think Mike Vrabel now is in the coach of the year conversation now. We talk about Shane Steichen. We talk about Shane Steichen. We talk about Kyle Shanahan, was doing in San Francisco. Obviously, Ben Johnson now in Chicago, what he's doing in Chicago. Another team I don't necessarily believe in big picture, but it's still a good story nonetheless. We'll get to him in a second. I think Mike Vrabel right now might have the lead right now, in fact, for coach of the year currently, and it's a very interesting situation right now. All right, second takeaway for me. Man, the AFC playoff picture is going nuts right now. There's a lot to go on. Look, we still got 7 weeks left in the season. And look, I think we're clear at this point that I think we have an idea which teams are the better teams in the AFC. We know right at this point Denver is running with the AFC West. They're now 9-2 with a big win against the Chiefs on Sunday. So now they have a 4-game lead, or actually a 5-game lead with a tiebreaker over the Chiefs. They now got a 2-game lead over the Chargers now. So I think we all believe that the Denver Broncos are the class of the AFC West. The Pats, I think, are going to win the East most likely. The Colts are definitely going to win the South, barring a collapse. But then you have like the AFC North. I don't think Steelers win that division at all. But even below that, you have the 3 wild cards of Buffalo, the Chargers, the Bills, the Chargers, and the Jaguars. Right now, you have 3 wild cards, 5, 6, 7 in that order. But the bubble is crazy. The Texans, who start 0-3, they're back, 5-5. The Chiefs, 5-5 now. All of a sudden, to me, they will still be in the conversation until they're dead and buried. I am not going against the team. The Ravens now, I will start 1-5. They're back as well too. The Dolphins are 4-7. They don't count. So the AFC walk picture is nuts now. Obviously, I'm evaluating my locks right now. Broncos get in, obviously. Pats get in, of course. Colts get in. Not sold on Steelers just yet. I think Buffalo still gets in the playoffs. I think the Chargers find a way in. I think the Ravens will win the division so that they'll get into the wild card. And I think the last spot will be between Kansas City and the Texans. And I think the Jaguars rather. And I think honestly, of the 2 teams, I think the Kansas City Chiefs will still find a way to get in that wild card spot. That's just how I feel about that. The NFC picture is a little bit less chaotic. Eagles are going to lock to get in, of course, win the East. Rams should win the West, even though they struggle against the Seahawks on Sunday. The Bears right now, that's a cool story, but that NFC North situation is still really tied up right now between 3 teams right now who don't want it. The Buccaneers are going to probably still win the South, even though Carolina is playing some decent football right now. Seattle will get in, whether it's a wild card or a division winner. Green Bay, who knows? San Francisco, who knows as well too, with all the injuries, but it looked good against Arizona. The only locks here I have is obviously the Rams, the Eagles, the Bucks. I still think the Bucks will find a way to win the South. So, and then the Seahawks, my 4 locks. Everything else is up in the air. NFC North up in the air. I think Detroit will get in somehow, whether it was a wild card or division winner. I have no faith in other teams. San Francisco's injuries. I think San Francisco will finally get in because San Francisco always does that. And then that's about it for now. But yeah, the playoff picture is getting very nuts right now, especially in the wild card situation. All right, number 3, third takeaway. The Bears are first in the North, and I still don't believe in this team. And I think it's because of the way they're winning games. I guess there's something to be said about winning games like that, close games. But there still seems to be, for me anyway, it still feels like a bit of a fake hustle with the Bears. To me anyway. I'm not saying, and look, I know Bears fans are gonna cram down my throat about their playoff position and whatnot, and I should believe in them. I gotta see more, bro. I gotta see more. I will say though, to his credit, Caleb Williams is really starting to play better. He's really starting to figure it out. Now, having said that, and I think I might do a topic on this on the show with Zach on the Egypt Degenerate episode we release tomorrow. I think if we did a redraft of last year's draft, Caleb Williams, I don't think we're number 1, but is it hard to say that he might go number 2 ahead of Jaden Daniels because of the injuries? I don't know. We'll figure it out. But he's starting to figure it out. The Bears are a solid team. Ben Johnson doing a great job there. Still on the fence about what the Bears, what they're doing and what they believe in, but we'll see about that. 4th takeaway. Despite the loss, I still feel good about the Seahawks. I really do. That defense clamped after giving up the 14 points in the first quarter to the Rams. Their defense clamped down hard, to the point that they almost won that game despite Sam Darnold and his 4 turnovers. That says more about Seattle. I think Seattle is a Super Bowl team. That defense is a Super Bowl defense. They shut down a very good offense in the league, and one of the only three teams I trust in this league right now currently, the Rams. I am starting to buy into Seattle despite that loss on Sunday. So look out for the Seahawks. They are not done by a long shot. They were missed field goal away from winning that game on Sunday. Graham was a long field goal, but that game, let's put it this way, that game should not have been close as it was, okay, because of all those turnovers, and yet it was. So shout out to the Seahawks. They're going to hang in there. They'll get in the playoffs, whether it's a wild card or it's a division winner. They'll get in the playoffs, and I think they are very dangerous, honestly. All right, and finally, my last takeaway from week 11. Sorry, which by the way I went 3-2, 1-1 my bets this week, best bets this week. So congrats to me. I'm going to defend James Winston here. That turnover in the end was not his fault. That was Jalen Hyatt running a bad route. Here's what's about James Winston. I really hope he's back next year as a backup of the team, as the number 2, QB2. Because say what's wrong with James Winston. He's inconsistent. Yes, there's a lot of picks. He's a gunslinger. But I like the fact that he at least challenges the secondary. They're in that game largely because of James Winston, because he is still dangerous. Because a quarterback like that, you never know. Now, yes, you might be able to win games with him throwing picks and whatnot, but he can also win you a game the way he throws the ball too also. And I will say, despite the loss on Sunday, it was nice seeing that Giants team play well for him. The offensive line was blocking him well. There was that one sneak he had where he went 8 yards, I think it was, and got a first down on a quarterback sneak. They play for this kid. They do. They love this kid. He's now leading Bible studies in locker rooms and whatnot. And I guess I don't want to blame the point over and over again, but seeing this turnaround with James Winston the last 5 years has been truly amazing, honestly, and it feels very genuine. So as long as Jack Dart can't start, I obviously want to see Dart and develop and all that, and he might start next week against Detroit. But I'm not gonna be mad if they start James again next week, just to keep Dart rested. Obviously not going to playoffs, and you want to see him develop, but at the same time, I think Jameis should be the QB2 moving forward for this team. And I think hopefully next year they resign him And I feel like he really enjoys being in New York. I think it really feels like he enjoys being with this team. So those are my takeaways from week 5. Why did I keep saying week 5? Week 11 of my top 5 takeaways in the NFL season this week. All right. Speaking of football, I'll be honest with you. I've been feeling very disconnected from the college football season. Now, look, here's the thing. I'm still following it. I know what's going on. I know how system won. I know what's going on. I know it's been a chaos and parity-driven year. But I felt like most of this year I've had one foot out. And I think a lot of the reason why it feels that way for me is because, well, a lot of it has to do with my work schedule. I do work Saturdays in my day job. And I typically don't get home until about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, I mean, people will say, well, you missed the first noon games and you still get to catch 3:30 games, 7 o'clock games, and 10 o'clock. True. But then by the time I get home on Saturdays, I really don't have the energy to sit in front of the TV and watch football all day long. I know it sounds very unmanly, like me to say that, whatever. But I get home, pick up my kids from wherever they're at. By the time I'm like trying to relax, and I don't know. Like, I think a lot of it too also, forget the fact that work schedule is what it is. But I think also too, FSU, the Florida State Seminoles, they start 3-0 this year. And then the season went absolutely sideways after that start. And now they're what, 5-5 or 6-5, whatever the hell their record is now. I don't know exactly what the record is now at this point. I know they won this weekend. But like, it went sideways. And I think it took the sting out of the excitement. I was literally very excited about the season when it started. When they beat Alabama week 1, whatever it was. And they came up to shoot. They were like ranked in the top 10, and then that Virginia loss happened, and then from there, everything from that point on became this picked up. You know, the Miami loss, and then another loss to Pittsburgh, and it might have taken a sting for me out of the season. And maybe that's the reason why I feel disconnected, which is weird because I love college ball as a whole. And there's a lot of really good stories. In fact, I gamble on college. In fact, I gamble bet. I've done better on college football gambling than I have on the NFL this year. But I just don't feel engaged in the season the same way I normally am. And it sucks. It really does. Because it's been a great year, man. And it's going to be a strong finish too also. You know? But that's how I feel. Anyway, last night was John Cena's last appearance ever on Monday Night Raw. Of course, he's retiring from the WWE after 25 years since he's been wrestling, and he's been in the company about the same amount of time, or a little less than that. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, seeing John Cena and doing this last 1 year run, it's been really, really cool to watch to some degree. But it has been hard for me to invest in this retirement tour because I think what I realized too also is that John Cena isn't from my generation, nor am I peaking my fandom. You know what I'm saying? And I think what sucked too also is that I was invested, especially too, when he turned heel back in March, or February, March, what it was. Was it March? He turned heel back in March, right? He wins the title WrestleMania against Cody Rhodes as the heel. All that was great. All that was awesome. And then everything went to shit after that. After the heel turn, after the title, and I'll even give you that first month when he beat Randy Orton in at Backlash in St. Louis back in May. Everything was fine. And then from that point on, everything went to shit. Now, WWE, I will say, to their credit on their own end, they're doing a decent job making us forget that the Cena heel turn, the run outside the turn, rather, was absolute shit. You know, and one day I'd like to see some clarity on why they didn't create a better story and turn him back to a babyface. Because he was a heel 1 minute, and then all of a sudden, he became babyface. Just like that. Like, he was babyface at SummerSlam, and then that's it. And then we have no reason why. And this is a problem when you do a turn like this. Because I know for years they were asking, they was thirsty about a Cena heel turn, and we never got that in his entire career. And then we got it in early this year, back in March. Okay? And it was great in the moment. Everything leading up to WrestleMania was great. You know, the promos he did was great. But the problem is when you put when we as fans already see an endpoint of a career. Like, we know his career was ending in December of 2025. We knew that as far back as late last year. It takes the sting out of it, man. It just does. Now that's why I always said that maybe that date they kept saying was probably a swerve. Maybe we're supposed to think that he's retiring, but he's not retiring. But it was real. So that alone took the sting out of the whole run, really. So, I mean, obviously John Cena, watching him in hindsight, like I said, I didn't watch John Cena's peak. Like you guys know my history. I stopped watching WWE in 2002 after WrestleMania 18. Cena debuted in the company on the main roster, I think months after I stopped watching. Okay, his peak obviously 2004, 5, all the way to 2015, 16. Okay, he was the guy. He was Hulk Hogan. He was Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was The Rock. He was the guy. Okay, he was the franchise. And I obviously knew about him, but I wasn't watching the product. So I don't have as a strong connection to John Cena like I do to Hulk Hogan, like I do to Stone Cold Steve Austin, like I do to Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, The Rock. There's a disconnect. I have a strong connection with Roman Reigns I do on John Cena because I watched Roman Reigns' peak, especially his last 5 years. So that's why I didn't have a strong connection. Now, having said that, watching him say his goodbyes and people appreciating him and whatnot, it's great to see. Like, I know how great he is. Like, he's in my Mount Rushmore. I'm not an idiot. Like, I may not watch his peak, but I watched enough of John Cena's peak and work in hindsight to know how great he was and is, and the impact he made in his company. Okay, he's a Mount Rushmore guy without question. Okay, but again, I don't have the investment like everybody else does because I did not watch in real time his peak, and it's what it is. You know what I'm saying? So I think his official last appearance will be on the last Saturday night's main event that will take place. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's December 13th. And obviously we're watching that. I did watch a little bit of last night's highlights that he got a big pop at MSG. It was really cool to see, man. Really cool to see Cena. I just wish I wish they didn't announce the endpoint because the endpoint really, it's cool. We got to celebrate him, but at the same time, it doesn't really help the stories. Like, it's better when it's a story naturally coming out of that. Now all we're doing is just saying bye every week. All right, okay, cool. We knew he was ending this in December. What are you doing? Like, what's there interesting to do storyline wise? So I don't know. But Cena, I salute you. Thank you for your service. It's like I said, the military. I'm not saying that, but all he's done to WWE and making entertainment in that genre something worth watching still after all these years. All right, before we get out of here, Michelle Obama had some what people perceive as controversial statements in terms of she was actually on a panel with Tracy Ellis Ross, who's the daughter of Diana Ross, and they were discussing about the idea of like whether or not the United States is ready for a female president. Michelle Obama's answer may actually bother some people. We'll see, but here's Michelle Obama's thoughts on that question.
Ready. That's why I'm like, don't even look at me about running, because you all are lying. You're not ready for a woman. You are not. So don't waste my time. We got a lot of growing up to do. And there's still, sadly, a lot of men who do not feel like they can be led by a woman, and we saw it. What was the question? I just said,
All right, that was Michelle Obama commenting on the fact that she believes that America is not ready for a female president. I think there's a lot of truth to what she's saying there. Like, I always said that, the election with Kamala Harris was a misogyny, was a racism involved in that. Yeah, some degree. Was that the reason she didn't get elected? I don't fall on that sword either. But what she said was interesting too. And by the way, I love the fact that Michelle Obama is very transparent and open about how she feels. The Michelle we see now in as a citizen versus the first lady, she's much more bold about what she believes and what she says, and that's it. But I do believe she's mostly right. I think there is still some pushback from a sector of this country that does not believe that we are ready for. I think that the sector country is not ready for a female president. That's a fact. That's a full flat. I've heard people myself tell me this. So we can't say it doesn't exist. It does exist. You know why? I've been told that by many people. Okay, and it doesn't matter on either side. And for record, I don't think that's either. I don't think that's a Republican Democrat thing either. I think even the people who on the Democratic side may still feel like that's not the case. We're not ready for that as well too. But I do have one pushback on what she said there. One pushback. And it's not even a major pushback. You know, she said that we saw it. She's always referring to the last three elections where a female ran against Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris. The problem is those last two women were flawed candidates. And when I mean by flawed, I'm not saying they were bad people. I'm saying they're flawed in terms of different situations. Hillary Clinton being the worst one. Hillary Clinton, for the record, Hillary Clinton is not only qualified, she is, in my opinion, was the most qualified person to run for that office outside maybe George H.W. Bush. Again, to a woman that was literally a senator, a secretary of state, a first lady. She served our country in many roles and big roles in this country, in government. Okay? Whether or not you agree with her politics, it's not the point. She's qualified. What makes her qualified? Doing jobs in that government, in that sector. Well, she's done that. Okay? The reason why she lost in 2016 is because she ran the worst campaign in the history of American politics. Okay? Again, I have to go back to this again. You know, her not campaigning in the Rust Belt in states that were strong Democratic strongholds for generations that she lost. Okay? Yes, she won the popular vote. Yes, we get that. But the name of the game in politics is 270. And she cannot do that. Okay? Now, I do agree there is some hypocrisy from people on the Trump side, you know, where she said something about, putting, supporters in a basket of deplorables and whatnot. That was very insulting. And other people felt some certain kind of way about that, and I agree with them, feel some way about that. But when your guy is talking the same kind of bullshit, if not worse than what she's saying, you don't have a goddamn word to say. Stop. Don't cry me a river about that bullshit. Be consistent, okay? All right? But on top of that, she also, her and the Democratic leadership, I'll say it again so I'm blue in the face, they fucked Bernie Sanders royally in 2016, okay? It's on record. Democratic operatives have said as such, admitted as such, that happened. So mystery the bullshit. She ran a horrible campaign. That's why she lost, okay? And that's with her still getting the popular votes, all right? Kamala Harris, less issue her. I don't think she was flawed either, okay? She was as flawed as Hillary. I thought she ran an okay campaign given the circumstances. Remember, she took over the campaign for Joe Biden with 107 days to go last year, okay? She unfortunately had to deal with the Joe Biden baggage, okay? But she also didn't take full control of her campaign because her people kept saying, follow this and X, Y, and Z instead of talking about issues that matter. Not going on certain podcasts, not being more open and honest, and being just talk, avoiding the media. So those two women, who I believe are fit to run for office, to be in office, did not run good campaigns. And I get the game is fucked up because there are people who will look at them and say, well, they're women. People are going to feel the way they feel. Nothing about that, okay? But they didn't make anything easier by the way they ran their campaigns. Mostly Hillary Clinton, especially, too. Plus, Michelle Obama, who I think if she ran president, she actually had a good chance of winning, to be honest with you. But she ain't running. In fact, I believe she has no desire to run, okay? And I wish people will stop trying to make fetch happen. Plus, y'all don't deserve her. Y'all don't deserve her because she's too honest for y'all, and y'all don't want y'all don't want honesty. Y'all want me kowtowed too, and this is both sides, bro. Most of all, the Republicans, Democrats too. Y'all don't want to be told to do. So, mystery of bullshit. So, do I think, my opinion, America's ready for a female president? I actually do think there is still a desire for that. I do think the numbers of people, the amount of people who are against the idea of female president is diminishing slowly. We're almost there. We had two women, two females that already came very close to breaking the glass ceiling. So we're almost there. We nominated two. I will say, well, actually, that's not true. Hillary was nominated, but she just screwed Bernie. Kamala was nominated by virtue of just, taking Biden's place. But do I think there's a desire for that? I still think there's still desire for that. But I think there's still a lot of people who do push back on that. We are still, I love this country. I really do. But we are still pretty backward still in a lot of ways. And we need to still grow as people. So anyway, that's it for me on this podcast. Once again, dated November 18th, 2025. I am on X at EJ Christian 7. Earnestly podcast across all podcast catchers, including YouTube, especially you following on YouTube at youtube.com/@EarnestlyPod. On TikTok, clips of the show at EarnestlyPod as well, too. Until the next episode, we will talk to you guys soon. Love you guys. Take care.